The Titanic is one of the most infamous maritime disasters in history, a tragedy that has captivated generations with its sheer scale, loss, and enduring mystery. When the grand ship, advertised as unsinkable, struck an iceberg on the night of April 14, 1912, and sank into the freezing waters of the North Atlantic, it left the world in shock. More than 1,500 lives were lost, and in the aftermath, countless investigations, theories, and discoveries sought to explain what really happened that fateful night. But was the sinking of the Titanic really just an unfortunate accident? Or was there more to the story? Hidden flaws, poor decisions, and overlooked warnings that sealed its fate before it even set sail? To understand why the Titanic sank, we first need to examine its construction. Built by the Harland and Wolff shipyard in Belfast, the Titanic was a marvel of engineering at the time. At over 882 feet long and weighing more than 46,000 tons, it was one of the largest ships ever built. It boasted luxurious interiors modeled after the finest hotels, complete with grand staircases, lavish dining halls, and extravagant suites that catered to the wealthiest passengers of the era. But beneath its grandeur, the Titanic had hidden weaknesses that would prove fatal. One of the biggest flaws in the Titanic's design was the quality of its materials. During construction, the shipbuilders used wrought iron rivets instead of the stronger steel rivets in many key areas. These iron rivets contained a high level of slag, a brittle substance that made them weaker under stress. When the Titanic struck the iceberg, these rivets popped, causing the hull to split apart more easily than it should have. Instead of a single puncture, the iceberg's impact created multiple openings along the starboard side, allowing water to flood in at an alarming rate. Additionally, the Titanic's steel plates were found to be unusually brittle in cold temperatures. Later forensic analysis of the recovered hull fragments revealed that the steel had a high sulfur content, making it more prone to fracturing rather than bending upon impact. In the freezing waters of the North Atlantic, this flaw became deadly, accelerating the rate at which the ship broke apart. But even with structural weaknesses, the Titanic's design was meant to prevent it from sinking quickly. The ship featured a series of 16 watertight compartments, separated by bulkheads designed to keep water from spreading through the vessel. However, there was a critical flaw in this system. The bulkheads were not tall enough. When the iceberg ripped open the hull, water poured into 5 compartments. As each one filled, the ship's bow sank lower, allowing water to spill over into the next compartment like a domino effect. The engineers had designed the Titanic to withstand flooding in up to 4 compartments, but the iceberg damage exceeded that limit. Once water began overtaking the compartments, the ship was doomed. Another key factor in the disaster was the speed at which the Titanic was traveling. Despite multiple iceberg warnings received throughout the day, the ship maintained a speed of about 20 knots 25 mph, close to its maximum. The general belief was that the Titanic could outrun or maneuver around any iceberg it encountered, but this overconfidence led to a catastrophic miscalculation. By the time the iceberg was spotted, there was too little time to react. The ship's crew attempted a hard turn to avoid a head-on collision, but instead of missing the iceberg, the Titanic scraped along its side. A direct impact might have been preferable, potentially damaging only the first few compartments, but the side swiped or a jagged gash in multiple sections of the hull. Furthermore, miscommunication and human error played a crucial role in the sinking. The lookouts in the crow's nest, whose job was to spot obstacles in the water, did not have access to binoculars. A simple misplacement of a key to the storage locker where the binoculars were kept meant they were relying only on their eyes in the dark, with no moonlight to help. Had they seen the iceberg even a few seconds earlier, the Titanic might have had enough time to turn more sharply, or at least reduce its impact. Additionally, the wireless operators aboard the Titanic were overwhelmed with passenger messages being sent to shore and ignored several iceberg warnings from other ships. The SS Californian, which was nearby, had sent a warning about an ice field ahead, but the Titanic's operator brushed it off as unimportant. Had that message been taken seriously, the ship might have slowed down or altered its course to avoid disaster. And then there was the issue of lifeboats. The Titanic had only 20 lifeboats, enough for just over 1,100 people, even though more than 2,200 passengers and crew were on board. Maritime regulations at the time did not require more, based on outdated safety rules that assumed ships would be able to stay afloat long enough for nearby vessels to assist. But this meant that when the Titanic began sinking, there simply weren't enough lifeboats for everyone. To make matters worse, The crew was poorly trained in emergency procedures, leading to lifeboats being launched half full. Some lifeboats that could have held 65 people left with only 20 aboard. The chaotic evacuation, combined with the freezing temperatures, sealed the fate of hundreds of passengers who were left stranded in the icy waters. As the ship tilted further into the sea, its stern lifted high above the water before finally breaking apart. Survivors in the lifeboats watched in horror as the mighty Titanic disappeared beneath the waves, taking with it those who had been unable to escape. When rescue finally arrived, only about 700 people were pulled from the wreckage, while more than 1,500 perished in the frigid Atlantic. In the aftermath, investigations pointed to numerous failures: poor materials, flawed design, overconfidence, ignored warnings, and a lack of lifeboats. The tragedy led to sweeping changes in maritime safety, including stricter lifeboat regulations, continuous radio monitoring on ships, and better iceberg tracking. The International Ice Patrol was established to monitor iceberg movements and prevent similar disasters. The Titanic's sinking was not just a freak accident, it was a disaster created by a perfect storm of factors, many of which could have been prevented. It stands as a reminder that even the greatest human achievements are not invincible, and that arrogance, complacency, and overlooked warnings can lead to catastrophic consequences. The real reason the Titanic sank was not just an iceberg, it was a series of human errors and flaws that, when combined, turned a luxurious voyage into one of the deadliest maritime disasters in history. Over a century later, the Titanic remains a haunting symbol of hubris and tragedy, a cautionary tale of what happens when we put too much faith in technology and ignore the warning signs staring us in the face.